Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Virtual Ninja Show. My name is Heike and I will be your host. Today, we are talking about a topic that keeps being in the news and everybody is always a little bit afraid of it. And that's why I have Sinclaire with me. And we are talking about what, Sinclaire?
Enhanced phishing protection for Microsoft Defender SmartScreen.
Thank you so much. But now first, please introduce yourself.
My name is Sinclaire Hamilton. I'm a PM at Microsoft working on enhanced phishing protection and also Microsoft Defender for Endpoint.
Yes, this is right. And Sinclaire, this is not a brand new feature, right? It has been out there for a little while, but we want to, of course, make everyone still aware of it and explain when to use it, how it works, and of course, how enterprises can configure it and make sure it's configured the right way for all the users. What are the prerequisites? Let's start with that. What do people need to have in order to get that feature running?
We make it really easy for you, which I love. So there's actually no prerequisites needed at all for enhanced phishing protection. It is baked right into the operating system. So you just need to make sure that you are running an operating system that is Windows 11, 22H2 or later. So this feature, enhanced phishing protection, it actually launched last year, so 2022 in September. And ever since then, we've seen a lot of organizations start to use the feature, and we just want to continue encouraging people that this is out there. It's actually enabled by default for enterprises, which means that if you do have an E5 license, then you're able to see the alerts from enhanced phishing protection in the MDE portal in the incidents and alerts area. So if you're an E5 customer, you can see that in the MDE portal, and it's already there and on by default for you to see known malicious alerts when your user enters their password into a phishing site, for example.
Before you go deeper into that, I think we need to start clarifying what it is. So in Windows, of course, there's multiple ways how people can log in into the device. So many customers already have turned on Windows Hello, which is either via a PIN or facial recognition. And then there is still either companies that are not there yet. For some reasons, they can't use that. So they are still asking the users to type in a password. And that's the dangerous part, right?
Exactly.
And it's not just enterprises, it's also everybody at home, of course, who probably either uses Windows Hello or use a password. And that's the one that you are going to protect, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So enhanced phishing protection, it works automatically on the Windows 11, 22, H2 or later, but only if the end user is signing into their Windows 11 device with a password. So currently we do not work when the user is signing in with Windows Hello. But there is reason for that. So we want everyone to go to Windows Hello for Business. That is one of the best ways that you can protect your enterprise because that allows you to transition to passwordless. It allows you to no longer need passwords in your organization. But there are so many customers out there that are still beginning their journey to Windows Hello and beginning their journey to passwordless authentication. And so for those customers, we wanted a way to make sure that their passwords could still be protected.
Okay, so and now the password is typed in, and then you remember that, or how do you make sure that? Because what I understood is if a user now uses that password on a suspicious page or app, or even an unsafe plain text application and types it in there, or I don't know, wants to use it again in a different application, the same password, as like, what are all the things that you're protecting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have 3 main protection scenarios for enhanced phishing protection. So basically, once the user types their password to log in, we are able to protect the user and tell them if they've used their password unsafely in 3 scenarios. So the first one would be known malicious. Those are what you would see alerts for in the MDE portal. And known malicious, that's just a phishing site. So we can actually tell if the user typed their password into a phishing site in real time, which is something that we haven't been able to do before. And the reason why is because the phishing protection is actually a part of the operating system. So we can see all of the network details, the traffic information, the connection context, and we can use that information to tell, okay, is this a phishing site or is this a safe site? So protection scenario number 1 is known malicious. And then protection scenario number 2, that is password reuse. So for the first time, you can see how prevalent password reuse is in your organization. If an end user has a corporate password and they want to use that password somewhere else so that they can easily remember it, you'll be able to tell, which is wonderful. And then the third protection scenario is for unsafe password storage. We consider that to be typing the plain text password into any M365 application or notepad. So we've seen when we were doing analysis and interviewing customers and users, we saw that a lot of people tried to remember their password by typing it into OneNote, for example, or trying to type it into Excel so that they can keep track of everything.
Yes, and the file is stored under the name My Passwords.
So secure, so secure. So we wanted a solution there where the user would get alerted and realize, okay, this is unsafe password behavior and this is why. And then we also make sure that you have access to that telemetry too.
And how does that work in the background? Like, how do you know, like Windows, what's the password and that this specific string can't be or shouldn't be used anywhere else?
Yeah, so in general, Microsoft Windows stores your password as a cryptographic hash in LSASS. So we actually use that same information. So it's stored as a cryptographic hash in the local security authority process. And then when the person provides input to Windows, that input flows from the hardware into the Windows input stack and then into the application at hand. And so through that, we can hash and encrypt that input and then compare it with a cached password in LSASS so that we can identify whether or not the person has actually typed their password. And as part of that, we not only can tell if you've typed your password, but we can tell if you've pasted your password in. So if you paste your password into an unsafe place, maybe you're doing copy paste, we're able to protect your password in that way as well. One thing that I want to add is that because enhanced phishing protection is integrated directly with the kernel and directly with the operating system, we are able to tell whether password input has happened anywhere on the device. So it doesn't matter if you're browsing an Edge browser or another browser, or if you're typing your password into an application of any kind. We can tell, no matter where you are on your device, whether or not the password has been used unsafely, which is a departure from previous features that only worked in certain browsers or only worked in certain cases. So this is a really comprehensive way to view and see that password behavior in your organization.
Wow. And I mean, SmartScreen has been there for a long time, right? And then we also have network protection, which I always called it SmartScreen in the box, because we can identify from any applications access to suspicious URLs and IP addresses and such. And now this is again on top of SmartScreen enhanced, when it's not, of course, just the URL and the destination, which is also important for this scenario, but now with a combination of a password that's being typed in there or used.
Yeah, that's exactly right. With SmartScreen, we are technically called Enhanced Phishing Protection for Microsoft Defender SmartScreen. That's the full name of the feature. And the reason why is because we extend SmartScreen's capability with this feature to be able to work on any application and on any site. So we really are focused on password entry and making sure that the user at hand understands that the password entry is unsafe and then is prompted to actually change their password.
And so, of course, we talked about this a lot in the past, but Microsoft has so many signals from all our security stack where we know what is malicious and what is suspicious, and all the signals that we get from all the users. So this is probably also that same data that this technology works with.
Exactly. There's a lot of various features that help improve your organization's security. And we wanted to make sure that not only was our UX consistent and our user experience consistent with other security features, but that the data that we receive from our billions of signals on Windows endpoints and devices are all able to be correlated so that your end users can be protected with the entire data and information that Microsoft has in general on attacks. And then with that, add in SmartScreen so that we could ensure if password entry is unsafe, the user knows. If it's entered into a phishing site, like known malicious scenario, then you know through the MDE portal as well.
Okay. I think you brought a demo for us, right? So I think I want to see that in action.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So when a user is typing their information into a site, they may not be sure if the site is safe or unsafe. The reason for that is that it's very easy for attackers and cyber criminals to create a site that looks legitimate or that looks like your organization's authentication site. So we wanted to make sure that there was a way that users are protected without having to know all of the intricacies of, okay, is this a phishing site? Do I recognize that this is a phishing site? We actually do that hard work for the user by analyzing those connections at the operating system level. So once the user types their password into a phishing site, in this case, there's a UI dialog that pops up here that explains that this is an application that made an unsafe connection reported to Microsoft for stealing passwords.
May I ask a question here? So how quick is that? Because, even if I copy paste my password, did the user already click on login or submit, or is that on the fly? Like how quickly comes that pop-up?
So this pop-up happens in real time. As soon as the user types their complete password or as soon as the user pastes their password in, then you will see this box pop up. And the user then has the option to change their password. If they click it, then they're brought to the settings application on their device where they have a direct link to actually change their password on their device.
Okay, that means even if the user didn't click on enter or like submit or what to sign in or something, like because now it hasn't been stolen yet, right? Or has it been stolen already?
Well, it depends. It depends. Usually it won't be stolen until the user clicks enter, but there are some keylogging attacks where someone could still have your password information just by clicking through. So we pop it up in real time. If the user is really, really fast and they click enter, that's okay because this will still pop up. So the user will know that unsafe password activity happened.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
Yeah. So this is what it looks like for the end user themselves. And you can actually, as an admin, configure whether or not you're showing these UX pop-up dialogues to your end users or not. So you have the option to show those dialogues in any of the 3 protection scenarios, all of them, one of them, 2 of them. And then you can also just show no UX to your end users and only have that data just flow to the MDE portal and look at it without having your end users have to interact with this blocking dialogue. So you can really customize it for your organization and what makes sense for your passwords. This is what it looks like in the MDE portal. Once that known malicious alert has come through, you can actually see it if you have an E5 license in the instance and alerts area here.
Good. So now that we have seen it in action, first of all, what's the user experience? And again, you can configure it as well as then how it shows up in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. Let's talk about the configuration. I know you can configure it in group policies. We are not going there, but we can configure it in Microsoft Intune. So let's do that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you can configure this in Intune through the settings picker in the settings catalog of Intune. Just scroll all the way down to SmartScreen, and then you expand the SmartScreen folder, and you'll see Enhanced Phishing Protection there. So once you click Enhanced Phishing Protection in the settings picker, you can then enable or disable any of these settings here.
And is there anything else that needs to be configured? It's basically turn on, and then the 3 scenarios that you can enable or disable, or like, yeah.
That's exactly right. So by default, this service enabled setting right here is enabled. So by default, it's enabled, and that's why you don't need to do any configuration once you have a Windows 11 device to actually see the alerts in the MDE portal. But if you want to show UX to your end users, if they do enter their password into a phishing site, or if they reuse their password, or if they try to type their password plain text into an M365 app, you can just go here and either enable or disable based on your desires for your organization.
Okay, and I looked at my device, and of course we are Microsoft managed, but this settings is not managed yet, but I see that it is enabled by default, I would assume. Like
Yes.
that means even if an organization didn't configure anything yet because they didn't know yet, it is on the device on Windows 11 H2 22 already enabled, but not the three individual warnings, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So yeah, I mean, let's have a look at the app actually on the Windows device, Sinclair. So for someone who might want to configure that for their personal laptop and not for an enterprise.
Yeah, so our feature enhanced phishing protection actually does work for consumers as well. So it's available for both consumers and enterprises. It's also enabled by default for consumers. But if you would like to either change those settings or as an enterprise end user, add additional settings for your own experience, you can go into the Windows security application and just browse over to the reputation based protection area. This is where we have all the SmartScreen settings and also the phishing protection settings, which are right here. And you can see right now, by default, it's on. This is the equivalent of that service enabled toggle that we saw in the Intune portal. And then you can opt in to be warned about if you type your password on a phishing site, for example.
Perfect. How can someone test this in their organization or an end user without failing or like falling for some real phishing websites?
Yeah, that is a great question because phishing is one of the top concerns of organizations. It only takes one person to accidentally type their credentials into a place that they think is safe. And so we want to make sure that it's possible for you as an enterprise admin or anyone in your organization to test out this feature and to see those alerts flowing to the MDE portal. So we do have a demo phish site. It looks like a phishing site, but it is completely safe. It's completely clean, even if you see like any warning on it. So if you want to test out a phishing scenario, there's a button on that page that says work or school account for your sign in. All you need to do is just click that button and then you'll be prompted to type the username and password that was used to sign into the device at hand. That's a really easy way to test the known phishing scenario because as soon as you type that password in, you'll be able to see the UX dialog if that was a dialog that you had indicated as one of your settings in Intune or GPO. And then you can also see that same alert happen in the MDE portal if you have an E5 license in the incidents and alerts area. But you can also test out all of the other protection scenarios as well. The second protection scenario that enhanced phishing protection works for is password reuse. So if you reuse your Active Directory or your Azure Active Directory or your local account password into any other application or website on any browser, then we will also warn the user there that they have reused their password, which is a security risk because if an attacker has access to one of your passwords, then they can try that same password at multiple different websites and applications and see if you have reused it. And if you have, they'll be able to get access to a whole range of information that you don't want them to see.
Oh, wonderful. And then I think you wanted to have another one where the last one was storing the password in an unsafe plain text. Yeah, there we go. The my password list.
In Word, exactly saved as my passwords, right? So in this example, the user is trying to remember all of their passwords. The average user has over 100 passwords that they need to remember in general. And in some organizations, there may be additional passwords beyond a corporate password. And so they may try to keep track of all of their passwords by storing them unsafely, plain text, in an M365 application like Word for this example. So if you've configured the UX setting to show your end user the UX dialog here, this is what they'll see if they type their password plain text.
So instead of doing that, users should use like everybody who has a Windows account or Microsoft account, there is all the passwords stored, and they can even go and check them out and make them visible with that little icon. They need to verify that it's them, but please do not type them not on a little piece of paper under the laptop. Okay, are there any other, I don't know, tips and tricks, recommendations when it comes to, in general, phishing? I know that feature is amazing and I think wonderful that we have it, first of all, for consumers.
I would like to add that enhanced phishing protection is a really great feature to see the signals at the operating system level that indicate potential compromise, but it's just one of many other great security features that you can enable for your organization. It's really important to do things like use a tax simulator to make sure that your end users are aware of what phishing looks like and can be kept up to date, and always be aware when typing their corporate password anywhere on their device, whether it's any browser, any application.
Yes, I would even complete and say any password, not just the corporate
Yeah,
one.
yes, any password.
Yes. Okay. I think we covered everything. Sinclaire, thank you so much for being my expert on today's show, for bringing the demo, sharing some great insights into how to test these features. And I hope, we are continue to evolve our features as well. And so maybe I will have you back on the show one day. And until then, thanks everyone. Bye bye.